Hurricane Melissa becomes the eighth strongest hurricane ever in the Atlantic basin, joining the ranks of Hurricanes Rita, Wilma, Gilbert, and Camille, with winds of 175 miles per hour. Those are sustained winds, gusts approaching 200, pressure down to 901 millibars, and it will bring life-threatening storm surge, catastrophic flash flooding, landslides, mudslides, extreme winds, particularly in the higher elevations, and infrastructure damage, particularly to the western portion of the island. You can see Jamaica right here. This will approach and make landfall sometime later this morning, probably around 10 o'clock. There is Jamaica in the circle. Look at these extreme winds just rotating around this storm, folks. You can just see the rotation. Pinks are minus 80 degrees Celsius. This is a storm that you see out in the Pacific, not in the Atlantic, but it is moving over extremely warm waters, and it's gone through eye wall mergers instead of an eye wall replacement where you get an outer eye wall that contracts as the inner eye wall diminishes, wind speeds diminish a bit, and then contracts, the wind field expands, all of that. It has not done that, probably because it's been in a low shear environment and it's been sitting over these really, really warm waters. But we've seen a little bit of an eye wall merger process that's allowed the storm to maintain its strength. And it is going to hit Jamaica this morning as a Category 5 storm, move across the entire island as a Category 5 storm. Torrential rainfall has been occurring, and it will continue to occur and pile up to the tune of 20 inches or so. This is one of the hurricane models called the HMON. And bring this down here and show you as it tracks through. It's going to bring the storm inland at around 910 millibars. It's going to cross right here just to the east of west of Alligator Pond, move straight across the island, and continue and emerge as we get on into the afternoon hours. About 2 o'clock, it will emerge off the northern side of the island. Those winds around the storm will swing around and batter the northern shore with probably a bit of storm surge here. Additional surge is going to proceed the storm out toward Cuba. You guys are going to get the brunt of this overnight tonight. But as that eye moves across the island, folks, don't go outside and think that it's all clear, because it's not. It's got a very well-defined eye. You're probably going to see blue sky if you walked outside, which I would encourage you not to do. You need to stay hunkered down in your safe space. This is very, very catastrophic, and I can't stress that enough. We don't hype the weather here, folks. My name's Jason. I've been tracking weather for a long time, and certainly I'm not trying to hype or scare anybody, but this is an extreme situation, one of those that does not come around very, very often. We may not see anything like this again in the Atlantic Basin for many years to come in terms of the strength and how long it's been strong and where it makes landfall and what strength it makes landfall. So looking at this afternoon and in the overnight hours, we're going to see this approach Cuba, make landfall in Cuba overnight tonight into the evening hours, track across Cuba, and emerge probably about 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, something like that tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, and then it heads right into the Bahamas, bringing storm surge and heavy rain and strong winds. Although it is in a weakened state, it still should be a major hurricane by the time it gets into the Bahamas, or it could be a major hurricane. It will likely be weakening as it crosses the higher train of Cuba. But that is the situation down here in the Caribbean. It moves through tomorrow afternoon, or Wednesday. Yes, tomorrow's Wednesday afternoon in the Bahamas, and then heads toward Bermuda. And the track is pretty much set here, folks. That is what we're looking at as we take a look here at Zoom Earth. Category 5 all the way across Jamaica to 2 p.m. this afternoon. It's right in the middle of the country, or either just coming off of the northern coast as a Category 5 storm. It will hit Cuba as a Category 4 storm, and then potentially get on in here to 100 and a week and below Category 3 status, so becoming out of major hurricane status by the time it approaches the Bahamas. Hurricane warnings are up in the Bahamas. Hurricane warnings are up in Cuba, of course, Jamaica. Tropical storm warnings for the Turks and Caicos and Western Haiti. You're not going to escape either. You're going to see a lot of wind here, tropical storm force winds in Haiti. Rainfall rates are very high here as well. So the Tiburon Peninsula is picking up lots and lots of rain here. With the storm, over a foot of rain is expected. Landslides for you, and power outages, of course. Communities are going to be isolated in these parts of the world, folks, and just need to pray as this comes in. This is not weakening. It hasn't. And unfortunately, that's what we're looking at. But take a look here and show you what the map of Jamaica looks like. It's going to, Melissa's going to track just like this, just to the east, it looks like, of Alligator Pond, make some landfall somewhere right around Great Pedro Cape, move right along in here, head toward Rio Bueno like this. This is where the eye wall is. It's about a 7-8 mile wide eye. That's very, very, very narrow. The winds are just spinning around like a top. And so Falmouth, Black River, Mandeville, and St. Anne's Bay, you are all going to be in the brunt of the storm. It is going to, the eye wall is going to come in like this and just ravish you all with high winds. And again, as I said, higher up you go, the lowest 150 meters of the storm, or millibars of the storm, I mean to say, is, we're looking at average wind speed of 201 miles per hour within that. So as you get up into these mountains, you're going to see very, very gusty winds, and through some of these valleys, that wind's going to be funneled. It's just going to reshape the landscape as some of this flooding takes place in here, folks. This is going to be extreme, something that most of you will never ever see again, have never seen before. Here's the wind as it comes in this morning. This is the sustained winds. Yesterday I showed wind gusts. We're going to see wind gusts over 150 miles per hour across much of the western portion of the island. As we put this on into motion, you can see this make landfall this morning, bringing wind gusts just all across the island, particularly the western half or western 2/3. Then sustained winds are going to be over 100 miles per hour. That's what this red is showing you, over 100 miles per hour. It goes on to make landfall in Cuba in the evening, and see a lot of wind gusts in Cuba too, well over 100, 125 miles per hour, maybe even higher than that in terms of gusts. Sustained winds, we're looking at winds well over 100 miles per hour. And you can see the ragged core as it comes off of Cuba. These mountains are going to disrupt it, and it will be in a diminishing state as it gets into the Bahamas. Turks and Caicos, you're going to see wind and heavy rain. Bahamas, you're going to see wind. The eastern Bahamas are going to see wind and heavy rain, and wind gusts over 100 as well for some of you in these islands out here as the eye moves north. And then it will continue to move on up toward Bermuda. The rainfall estimate still is, this is issued yesterday afternoon, so probably we've seen a lot of this rain already fall, but we'll continue to see rain throughout the day here in Jamaica. So probably another 15 inches or so to go before all is said and done here. More rain to fall here in Haiti and of course Cuba, and then next up the Bahamas. And so plenty of rain here, 20 and 30 in this bright pink, 16 to 20 in the maroon, and then you get into reds, 12 to 16, 8 to 12 inches. This is just unprecedented torrential rainfall for this part of the world, folks. It's going to lead to so much infrastructure damage on top of it, with the wind on top of all of this rain. So plenty of rain to come, and just stay inside Cuba. You need to be wrapping your preparations up, same in the Bahamas, and then eventually up in toward Bermuda, folks, as we get on out into the next couple of days here. And I wanted to show you this too. I wanted to zoom this out and take this on up a little bit. There we go. Zoom it on out. Kind of doing some of this on the fly here, folks. There's Bermuda, Friday, 2 a.m. That's when we're looking for the storm to pass you all as a Category 1 hurricane, maybe Category 2. Just depends on how much the core gets disrupted as it goes across Cuba. So as it gets on into Bermuda, you're going to be in the eastern eye wall of this. The way it looks now is the center passes just to your west. So hunker down here, get your preparations all ready and wrapped up. Rip currents are going to be a problem up and down the East Coast the next couple of days, so watch out if you're going out into the water. And then finally, wave action. As this moves toward Jamaica, we're seeing 20 to 30 foot seas. That will continue to press to the north and to the east, and as we get into the evening hours, 25 foot seas with storm surge approaching Cuba. And as we get on into tomorrow afternoon, 25 to 30 foot seas up here in the Bahamas as well. And then that just goes on up into the Atlantic and churns up the Atlantic again. Probably see some more coastal erosion, folks. And that's what we've got going on here in the tropics. We're going to take a look right now at what's going on over the lower 48. Got some rain out there this morning. We're going to center this up and get ready to tell you what the weather's going to be like here over the lower 48 the next couple of days. But pray for our friends down in the Caribbean. Jamaica is about to just get hammered with the storm, and people may not recover from this down there for a very long time. Rainy start for some of us here as we head out the door to work this morning on our Tuesday. We've got a big batch of rain as part of another storm system that's going to get its act together and head toward the southeast, spawn another area of low pressure, and bring more rain into the southeast. It is a rainy week, and we've needed one of those here in the southeast as well. But we've got rain and thunder this morning from Oklahoma City back into Fort Smith, Arkansas, and then from Dodge City to Salina to Omaha, Lincoln, Nebraska, up in here to Sioux Falls and Sioux City, up to Fargo, North Dakota, even over to Minneapolis, seeing some rain. This morning, the Northeast is finally cleared out from your week of drizzle and showers, and then more rain moving into the Pacific Northwest. That's what's going on out there this morning. As we take a look at how this will play out over the course of the day and through the rest of the week, going to be rainy here in North Carolina. I didn't even show you that, mention that on the radar, but certainly Richmond all the way down to Columbia, South Carolina, down into Charleston, back into the lower Appalachians, southern Appalachians here toward Asheville. We're looking at rain around this morning, spotty rain, some heavier pockets embedded in there, but that will persist and then move east as we head through the afternoon. The bulk of that rain will be pushing off shore as we go into the overnight hours tonight, with another batch and another system moving through with some thunderstorms down here in the lower portion of the Mississippi Valley as a new storm system moves in. Head out the day tomorrow, going to be rainy, particularly over here in western Tennessee. Low pressure spinning up here, heading toward the east. High pressure in control, wedging some cooler air down the eastern portions of the Apps. There comes that storm system bringing rain to Washington State and Oregon as well. Some little bit more snow in the higher elevations, but most of that is done for the week. And that low pressure just gets its act together as we head to tomorrow afternoon, and plenty of moisture being pulled up out ahead of that. So Indiana, southern Ohio, most of Kentucky, West Virginia, and working into Pennsylvania and portions of the mid-Atlantic, certainly Virginia and North Carolina, seeing some heavy rain, spotty rain back here under the core down in Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina as we go through the day tomorrow. And then we get into the overnight hours. A lot of that will push on into the Northeast and the Ohio Valley and the Mid-Atlantic as we head toward Thursday. And Thursday is going to be a washout for much of those areas. And then that heads on into Friday. There goes Melissa up toward Bermuda. And then we get on into Friday, and everything starts to pull out by the time we get into Friday afternoon into the evening hours. Unfortunately, across the northern tier back into the Pacific Northwest and over into the Northeast, we're looking at least spotty showers and clouds and drizzle around, with more persistent showers up here in New York State and northern New England. But most of the southern half of the country, 2/3 of the country, look good for Halloween activities as you take your kids out to go trick-or-treating on Friday. And it's going to feel like fall, particularly in the east, where we've got, as that storm system rolls through, another push of cool air will come in behind it. Windy conditions can be expected here in the plains today, with gusts into the 20s and 30s. Some wind advisories actually up here in Texas as well. And rainfall for the rest of the week, looking at about a half an inch where you see this blue shade, into about an inch where you start to see yellows. And then as you get into the reds and oranges and reds rather, looking at 2, potentially 3 inches. So a good portion of the middle Mississippi Valley, lower Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, up into the interior Northeast and upper Southeast, looking to pick up 1 to 2 inches of much needed rain. Florida, you get a little bit down here in the south, but not too much. And then a little bit more as the mountains wring out some of that moisture coming in off the Pacific as we get through the week. This is by the end of the day Friday. Snowfall, as you can see, not a lot showing up here, but look at this. This is the European AI. This is through the end of the week, so we get a little bit up here in the northern part of Washington. That's just about it. But as we roll this along, we get on out towards Sunday into Monday, Tuesday into Wednesday of next week, and we finally start to get into the latter portion of the week. Look what happens up here as we approach next weekend in the Northeast. The AI is putting down some snow, and lots of it. Looking at about a foot of snow up here across northern New England back into New York State. Will that happen? I don't know. It's a little bit early in the season for big snows, but they can happen this time of year if things come together just right. We've got some cold air lurking to the north, so we'll watch that and see. The European operational itself isn't showing this, but certainly more snow outside of out back in the west in the Rockies. That's not all that unlikely this time of year. We've seen some of that, as a matter of fact, over this past week. So it's that time of year we're going to watch all of this stuff, and we'll start to see more and more signals for snow as we get a little closer to mid and late November, approaching December. So good stuff to watch as we head on in toward the end of or middle part of November here. And here are the low temperatures. Yesterday I showed the high temperatures, and basically from a line from this point up like that, we're looking at highs in the 50s mostly, with some 40s pushing in later in the week, some 40s up here in New England. That's going to be the regime for most of the week. Low temperatures centered out here into the west, where we've got northerly flow and across the northern portion of the northeast as well. Look for temperatures in and below freezing. Everybody else is above freezing, 40s and 50s. That cooler punch pushes to the east as we head through the week, and then we'll see a resurgence of that as we get on into the weekend. But the cooler air will work into the plains. You guys will be largely below freezing for lows as we head towards Saturday morning, and 30s and 40s across much of the rest of the nation till you get way down here into southern Florida, southern Texas, and the desert southwest, San Joaquin Valley. And so that's what we're looking at from a temperature low standpoint. High temperatures, as I said, still hold from yesterday, so you can go back and watch yesterday's video if you'd like. Looking out at the longer range as we get on out here toward Thursday, we've got a big trough showing up here in the east. That's that big storm system I showed you a while ago, winding up bringing rain to the east and the northeast as we head through the weekend. As we get on into the week, or into the week rather, as we get on into the weekend, the regime stays pretty much in place. Ridge out west, trough in the east. We're going to look at this map a lot during the winter because this is going to show us the pattern, and it will help us understand where winter weather is a possibility and where cold air intrusions are a possibility. So we get on out into next week, we see this pattern start to diminish a bit in its intensity. The ridge flattens out west, which enables less cool air to move out of Canada and more zonal flow takes shape. And we still have general ridging out west as we move into mid next week, troughing in the east. But again, the model seems to want to flatten the flow out in time and build a little bit of a ridging signal in the east. The GFS is kind of doing the same thing. That would warm us up as we head on in toward mid-November. So we'll keep our eyes on the pattern. In the meantime, taking a look here at the 6 to 10 day, this is November the 2nd through the 6th. Weather Prediction Center has below normal temperatures in a good portion of the east of the Mississippi River, near normal here in the center, and then above out west, mostly above in Alaska and Hawaii. And precipitation, as we get into that time period, looks to be across the northern tier with another ridge building back in here toward the nation's midsection, and the southwest keeping the Gulf shut off for business and not allowing moist flow or return flow to work into the United States. And so we won't see a lot of in the way of rain here across the south, mostly above in Alaska and Hawaii as well. That is your forecast for the nation for the rest of the week. We're going to take a look quickly at space weather. We're back in, or about to be back in, geomagnetic storm conditions. We're headed back into solar storm conditions, G1 expected. Why is that? Well, it's because of this coronal hole, which you can't really see showing up on this view. You've got a little bit of a signal here for the bottom portion of it. I'll show you a different view in a second, but you can see KP is headed up. Going to see some yellow bars coming onto that graph here pretty soon, and then nothing showing up on X-ray flux because the sunspots that we have in place are not all that impressive, and they continue not to be impressive. Let's go back here. There's the big coronal hole. On this view of the sun, you can actually see it showing up very well. So enhanced wind from that is affecting us. That's what's going on. We had an earthquake in Turkey, another 6.0 in Turkey. We seem to have a lot of earthquakes over here with a lot of damage, I think, coming out of this. Again, nothing back home, though, and nothing else of note around the world. We're at a 38.4% waxing crescent moon on our way up to a full moon. This will be the Beaver moon. Been talking about this. Get your cameras ready. This will be the brightest super moon of 2025 when it occurs. Again, a super moon is when there's a full moon close to the Earth, close to when the moon is at its closest point to the Earth. That is the perigee, and the moon's orbit around the Earth is not perfectly circular, so it kind of gets away a little bit, and then it comes closer a little bit, and then it gets a little farther away, and then it gets a little closer. And when you have a full moon at the closest point, perigee, that's when you have a super moon, and this will be the brightest one of those in 2025. So that's the show for today, folks. I don't have a weather IQ question for today. Didn't have time to get that together. Been looking at all of this hurricane data. We'll have that back in place tomorrow. But anyway, pray for our friends in Jamaica and Cuba and in Haiti and the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos and Bermuda. And if you're living in one of those areas, make sure you're finding a safe space and being as prepared as you can. This is a monster storm, unlike one we've seen in a very long time here in the Atlantic. And that's the show for today. Hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Be back tomorrow with another full episode of Cold Rain Southern World. In the meantime, God bless and take care.